In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host and financial advisor, Rick Everett, along with the full complement of panelists in this episode to include founding partner and financial advisor with Market Advisory Group, Daniel Goolsby. Danny, as we call him. Our lead CPA with Market Tax Services, Joshua Cicora. Health Insurance Advisor with Market Medicare Advisors, Cory Hiebert. And our lead attorney with Eidelman Law Firm, our estate planning team, Gerald Eidelman. Welcome in, everyone. Danny, a big show. What do you have for us this week?
Well, today I want to talk about skill sets. You know, when you think about retirement, you don't often think of the term skill set. I mean, that's something that doesn't necessarily go together. But if you think about it, saving for retirement is actually a skill set that people have been using for, 20, 30, 40 plus years of their life at that point. It almost becomes unconscious when they're going through their adult life and they're working their job and they're going about their social routine, and they're just stuffing money away in their investment plans, in their retirement plans. They're amassing assets here or buying property or whatever is particular for them. But then when they retire, they have a hard time transitioning because they're actually used to the way that they've done it for the last 20, 30, or 40 years, as far as the way that they have invested, the way that they have occasionally maybe taken monies out from their retirement plans or their nest egg. And it's a whole different skill set, though, when you're coming down than when you're going up. In other words, when you're acquiring and you're trying to amass a set of assets to sustain you whenever you do retire, then when you go to try to take a distribution schedule, how do you do that in a tax efficient manner? How do you do that where that you don't run out of money in your adult life?
I want to switch gears a little bit if we could, and I want to pivot to Joshua with Market Tax Services. Danny, you've alluded to a metaphor in a sense, yes. and you and I were talking before the show began about this metaphor of in the wealth accumulation phase that you just described. It's like climbing a mountain. But then when we get to the retirement phase of how do we manage these assets and spend them down in a manner that we're not going to outlive our money, it's like descending the mountain. And so Joshua, the metaphor of climbing the mountain and descending the mountain, does it translate to taxes at all in retirement?
Yeah, I sure think it does. When you're saving for retirement, when you're climbing a mountain, slow and steady wins the race. Don't try to save everything all at once. Don't try to sprint your way up the mountain. A little bit at a time, that gets you there. Coming down the mountain is a different story. Visiting with clients with Danny in the conference room, he'll often share statistics about you're more likely to have a problem mountain climbing when you're going down versus when you're going up. If you're going to have a problem in retirement, it's probably not when you're saving for retirement. It's going to be when you're spending your way through retirement. Without that income plan, problems can happen. That income plan needs to not just look at the money you're pulling out, but the consequences of the money you're pulling out. Is it going to increase your taxation? How does it play into your Social Security taxation? Did you make plans before you started climbing down the mountain to have a more tax-efficient retirement? Did you do things like Roth conversions? Deal with some of the taxes before you're retired so that when you are retired, there's a pot of money that's free of tax consequences to you.
Danny, you've put a lot of work into the preparation of this show, and you've even done some research that you shared with me prior to the show about statistically there's more accidents in actual mountain climbing coming down than there is going up.
That is so true. Back to the skill sets, though, for just a moment. For those folks that are retiring or thinking about retiring, if you stop and think about it, sometimes we approach the next phase of our life without knowing exactly how to get to that next phase. if I read a study here pretty recently, and I've said this on other shows pretty recent, but it just really strikes a chord, or really makes the point, if you will. So this study said that 86% of escapees, so those people who were in prison, wherever, whatever, 86% of those people who did successfully escape prison, they were captured again, they were recaught within 48 hours of their escape. But so those prisoners, when they were held inside the prison, they had a goal, and that goal was to get out. They didn't like being confined. They wanted to be on their own. So they had a goal. But those 86% of the prisoners that escaped prison, they didn't have a goal to stay free. They had a goal to get out, but they didn't have a goal to stay out of the prison. So they were recaptured. The metaphor goes this way, is if we're trying to go for retirement, sometimes we think of the word retirement and we think that it's a very idealistic, it's a very romantic sound. Hey, I want to get away from my employer, they're just being terrible on me. It's really high stress. How do I get out of this? And so I'm going to retire at a such a date. And so that's when I'm going to be free. And so I say that to say that if you don't have a plan to stay retired, similar to the prisoners who didn't have a plan to stay free, how do you stay retired without going back to work? It's plenty of times I've known people who have gone back to work at their discretion after they initially retired. They maybe have gone back to a part-time job or something, opportunity that came along, but you want to be able to stay free. You want to be able to stay retired unless you want to go back to work. Do you have that plan? And that plan is constructed several different ways. You want to use the right tool for the right job. For example, if I'm trying to dig a hole and I use a claw hammer to try to dig that hole, I'm not going to be very successful, and it's going to take me a long time. Conversely, if I try to pound a nail and I'm using a shovel trying to pound that nail, my hands are going to get nice and bloody before I get done. So I want to use the right tool for the right job. If I'm trying to stay retired, then how do I make that event in my life for the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life, how do I make that the most tax efficient manner? I've got to use a different different technique than I was using when I was climbing up the mountain, as you say.
A different skill set.
A different skill set. So we want to talk about skill sets. And so we're going to go around the table today and talk about the perspectives of these different professionals, whether it be the tax professional, whether it be the healthcare professional, whether it be the legal professional, whether it be the financial professionals. How do people approach retirement or as they're accumulating assets, and how should they approach retirement? What's the different view? What's the different perspective they have as they're retired?
To simplify it a lot, my dad used to use an expression like a dog chasing a car. What is he going to do when he catches it?
Right. I caught the car, now what?
Exactly. Are you approaching the peak of your retirement savings? Or maybe you've already started your descent into retirement and feel like you haven't solidified your footing yet? Market Advisory Group can help you find your way down that mountain. And if you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation visit with our full team, our operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. There you can find informational, free classes throughout the metro area to take in and view past episodes, or go ahead and schedule that appointment at ionretirement.com. We'll be back with more of the show right after this.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. Financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors. All in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you. to get you answers in real time, to help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Shocker Rowing.
Hi, and welcome back into the show. Danny, in the first segment, you took us through a metaphor about how saving for retirement is like climbing a mountain, and retiring is like coming back down that mountain. Can you go into more depth with how people struggle with the transition?
Yes, so let's do that. So if you think about trying to climb a mountain, Mount Everest, that's the tallest peak in the world. And so for those climbers or those rock climbers, they like to do that for the challenge, if you will. So if you think about all the people that ever have tried to hit the summit or the top of Mount Everest, that's a really small percentage of people that have tried to. So those that have been successful is a much smaller percentage than those who initially tried. And it's not that they failed necessarily going up the mountain. They may have changed their mind. They may have had a weather event that caused them to reschedule, what have you. There's a bunch of different things that could happen going up the mountain. But if you think about the percentage of people that have been successful making it to the summit, it's even a smaller percentage of people who have descended the mountain. And so did you know that most accidents when you're climbing a mountain, and again, my example of my metaphor here is Mount Everest, did you know that most of those accidents happen on the way down? And that could be because of weather, it could be because of avalanche, it could be because you're descending too fast, which would be altitude sickness. And so you descend too fast and you don't acclimate yourself to it, then you could die, it could hurt you. Did you know that while you're going up the mountain, most people that are trying to get up to the top of Mount Everest, it takes about 6 weeks to get to the top of the Mount Everest because you're acclimating to the altitude. You know, it takes less than 3 or 4 days to get back down. So you spend more of your time trying to get to the top than you spend going down the mountain successfully on the other side. The metaphor is this, is you spent 20, 30, 40 years maybe of your life trying to amass something for retirement. You don't want to spend a very small fraction of your retired years going through your money. You want to make sure that you have a way of making sure that you're not going to run out of money in life. You know, there's something called, when it comes to trying to climb or scale Mount Everest, there's something called the death zone. The death zone is an altitude of about 8,000 feet. And it talks about where the oxygen pressure is extremely low. Humans are unable to stay at that height for very long unless they have a supply of oxygen. Well, you know, when you get into retirement zone and you're retired from your employer, are you in the death zone? You know, many, many times I've heard people say in my career, I've heard them say, I want to make sure that my money lasts longer than I do. I don't want to have my money run out before I run out. And so you want to make sure that your retirement plan that you have is not in the death zone.
You know, Joshua, I'm going to pivot to you, Market Tax Services. Part of that transition from climbing the mountain to descending the mountain, or accumulating wealth to trying to determine what is the most prudent way for wealth distribution in retirement, one of the things I run into a lot is people that have done their taxes all their lives up until the point of retirement. And then when they're facing the prospect of doing those taxes in retirement with all of the rules changing, it can become very daunting. And has that been your experience as well with people?
Yeah, well, that's something we see regularly. it'll surprise people when I talk about their tax filing and how they do it. And people will be surprised. I say, if you're just working a W-2 job or two, got some bank interest, pretty simple situation, yeah, you can handle that on your own. You don't really need a tax professional for that. And that surprises people a lot for some reason. But as you move into retirement, things get more complicated. It's not necessarily about how you put the numbers on the forms, because that's not, at the end of the day, that's not that big of a deal. But it's making sure that you're making the right moves ahead of time so that when you do get around to putting the numbers on the form, that you're doing so in the most tax efficient fashion, making sure that you have monies allocated to the right pieces of your nest egg so that your retirement picture is as tax efficient as possible, as we were talking about. Making sure that everything is optimized so that whatever taxes you do have to pay are as little as possible.
Cory Hiebert, an insurance specialist with Market Medicare Advisors. I'm guessing the metaphor of climbing a mountain and descending is very apparent in your line of work, because in the climbing the mountain as it pertains to Medicare, the Medicare is non-existent, but in descending the mountain, it's like an oxygen mask you're going to need.
Yeah, Rick, you're absolutely right. And where Medicare really differs from a lot of what you're going to have within the private health insurance world through the employer is, I don't have the luxury when somebody walks into my office to be able to tell them, hey, we're going to make your decisions for your health care for the next year. And then after that, we can completely fix this and we can do whatever you want. That's not exactly the way that Medicare works. A lot of times whenever I meet with people, that very first decision that they make can be critical, not just for the next year, but potentially for the rest of their lives. I don't have the luxury of just planning 1 year at a time. So it's really about, once you hit that peak, get excited. I'm just as excited that you're retiring as you are. Well, they're probably a little bit more excited, but there still comes a big learning aspect, right there at the end of your working career, that we have to learn about this brand new, extremely different system of healthcare than you're used to in that private market.
It is a completely different skill set, because in our early life, if we're working for the proper employer, our healthcare is provided. It's just a matter of choosing which plan. A little more complicated in the Medicare world.
Yeah, typically the employer is going to put in front of you option A, option B, option C. Pay more, less out of pocket, pay less, maybe more out of pocket. Medicare, you have option A through Z, and I think they even get into double A and double B and so on and so forth.
So in planning for retirement in the accumulation or climbing the mountain phase, it's like muscle memory, and it can be tough to change those reflexes when you start your descent down the mountain and actually retire. We have an entire team of experienced mountaineers at Market Advisory Group that can not only help in finishing the climb up that retirement mountain, but we're also here to help with a smooth descent. To set up a complimentary, no obligation visit with us, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. We'll be back with the final segment of the show right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
I need a place to go to see about my investments. Ask my friends if they know about holistic retirement. Everything in one place. Estates, taxes, and Medicare. People meeting face to face. Advisors to help me get there.
At Market Advisory Group. Retirement under one roof. At Market Advisory Group. We're invested in you.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Eye on Retirement, where we're talking about the mountain of retirement. Danny, do you think the metaphor of climbing and descending a mountain actually extends to estate planning?
Oh, I think so. I'm not an attorney, so I'm going to ask Gerald that question. But Gerald, so when you have a young family, and is there one kind of maybe tools we need to have in our toolbox when it comes to legal tools? If I should pass away while my children are still minors, is that one kind of tool that maybe is not quite as important when my children become adults?
Absolutely. I mean, when your children are young, you're concerned about their welfare, who's going to take care of them if you're unable to be there for them. When your children are adults, now it's about leaving a legacy to them and planning for that. And part of that, it requires a lot of forethought as to what will happen to you later in life. I mean, the fact is that about half of the people over 65 may have a long-term care event, and that could significantly affect their wealth and the legacy to their children. And so at retirement, it's a good time to begin planning for that, to make sure that you can protect as many of your assets as possible should you encounter a long-term care event. Another part of planning is there's many people who have their own business, sole proprietorships, partnerships, and they're trying to retire from the business or somewhat become less involved in the business. And that's a time for us to plan for business succession. Do you have things in place so that your children, your spouse can actually inherit the business and you don't have to go through probate? We had a case just very recently where that was not the case. The husband was the primary owner of the business. He died suddenly and left his wife basically with a huge tax bill. Not on purpose, obviously, but because of lack of planning. What happened is that there were losses that he was carrying forward in his business that his wife couldn't use in her tax return because she didn't own the company. It was just still in his name. So in a situation like that, we had to actually transition and do a probate estate to be able for her to be able to take over the business, sell it, wind it down, and be able to take that loss and deduct the loss from her income. Otherwise, she was stuck with a $70,000 tax bill. So coming to retirement is a very important phase where you begin to think about your mortality. And one of the things that you think about is, what am I leaving as a legacy? What protections do I need while I'm aging, because I may not have the capacity to be able to take care of myself? Who is going to be taking care of me if I'm unable to take care of myself? So these are all things that become really important in retirement to be able to make sure that you're prepared for climbing down that mountain safely.
So then it sounds like, Rick, whether we're talking about the tax side, whether we're talking about the health side, whether we're talking about the legal, and the legal is a little bit of a different animal, but you still need to check on things as you hit the summit, as you continue to hit a different elevation in your working years. Is my tax plan still up to date and viable, not only for while I'm amassing assets, but while I'm trying to now distribute those assets? Is my healthcare plan under 65 is certainly different than my healthcare plan over 65. What are my choices there? And do I have the right plan? So as I go forward in my adult work life together, and I'm getting closer and closer to the summit of retirement, do I have the right plan in place for retirement? And then the legal side, yes, Gerald likes to say all the time, if you have a legal instrument in place, you need to have those reviewed every 3 to 4 years just to make sure they're up with the tax code and the legal.
It's easy to put off estate planning because we don't want to face our own mortality. Estate planning almost needs to be so easy to address that it doesn't make sense to put it off any longer. Market Advisory Group, having our estate planning attorneys with Eidelman Law Firm in-house, makes it just that easy. If you'd like to reach out and set up that complimentary visit, give us a call, 316-252-8707. That's all the time we have this week. I'm Rick Everett, along with the entire team, reminding you we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client and prospect names mentioned on this show have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.
Well, it's that time of year again, tax time. Hi, I'm Joshua Cicora with Market Tax Services. Are you newly retired? Are your taxes becoming more complicated than you can handle on your own? If you could use help on your taxes, give us a call, 316-803-1040, or reach out to us at markettaxservices.com.